Lovely to be with you, Andrea.
Thank you.
So, what I love sharing, we were just having a chat. I love sharing the stories of people's practices. And obviously, we've been working together. You're just coming to the end of TPPA 4, Practice Accelerator 4. And so you've been on this journey since the beginning of the year. And we had to call it TPPA 4 Pandemic Special because we had all of the blinking lockdown and everything, all of that disruption in the middle of it. So it's been a bit of a special journey for everybody, I think. Yeah. So just tell us a bit about your kind of background and your story up until joining Practice Accelerator in January.
Okay. So I started off as a forensic psychologist, did that for a couple of years, working in the prison system, and then retrained as a clinical, and specialized in family work and trauma and anxiety with children and adults. And so did that across, I started in the NHS, then moved to social care, and then back to the NHS, to CAMS, but sort of about 3 years ago, I went completely independent. So just working on my own, doing a mix of therapy for children and adults, and court assessments, expert witness assessments. So that's kind of where I was. When I came to you, I knew I wanted to stop the expert witness work, knew I wanted some new kind of initiatives, but didn't really have the confidence to step into them. So
Yeah. Now, do you remember me saying it was cat o'clock? So the cat has just rocked up again.
And I've just got like a helicopter outside.
Right. I'm going to pause us a minute.
Okay.
While I go and catch the cat.
Good luck.
I'm just going to pause the recording because he's starting to create ructions. Just a sec. So sorry for the cat break there. We may or may not edit it out because I think there's part of this which is about the reality of what it is running your private practice from home, especially at the moment. Yeah. So you mentioned that you went into private practice 3 years ago. But if I remember rightly, that was like, I think you were a little bit kind of modest about it because it really grew your private practice as well.
So in that 3 years, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
you've been working with associates and things, right?
Yeah. I guess I started the private practice journey, actually a long time ago, but only dipping my toe in it. So maybe it was about 13 years ago, I started some expert witness work, but just doing a little tiny bit and a couple of clients outside of the NHS. So it was only very little. And then it was about 3 years ago that I went fully independent. And that's when I had a couple of associates doing expert witness work with me. And two doing therapeutic work, because I suppose that's the other area that I forgot to mention is supervising and developing other psychologists. Really, like that. And I had a bit of a team that were all very passionate about trauma and child work, and family work.
Okay, and now you've got seagulls crying in the background, yeah? We're going to call this the animal episode. Oh dear. Anyway, there's spirit animals showing up because you've got your bird necklace on as well, which is part of your brand, I remember. So what you said was that you'd come to a point where you had projects that were kind of bubbling in the background that you just wanted to have some help with developing and growing.
Yeah.
So what was the kind of pivot point for you where you thought, right, now I'm really going to do this now?
I think for about 2 years I've been contemplating giving up the court work because, I think like a lot of people, it kind of runs its course. It's quite heavy duty work, and, I was sort of, I felt like I'd done enough. But I found myself sort of psychologically in a spot where I'm struggling to give it up, and I thought I'm going to need some help to channel this and to shift, because it was a big income source. I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed aspects of it, and I had ideas as to where I wanted to take it, but just didn't really know how to take those steps, and just felt scared and didn't think, I wondered if I well, I think I lacked the knowledge as to how to take it forward, the confidence and the support. It just would have been too big a thing to do. I just would have carried on doing the same old thing. I knew if I didn't have some external support.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think we ended up having a conversation also because Becky Quick is a friend and colleague of yours, is that right? And I think you guys had a conversation about part of her journey as well.
Yeah, because I was quite in close contact with her while she was going through her journey, and and part of me was thinking, oh, I want to do that. But then the other part thought, no, I don't want to do that. I want to just carry on as I am. That sounds very disruptive.
Yeah.
And so when I first was talking to her about, oh, I've had enough of the court work, she said, oh, you really should consider this. I think it'll be really helpful. And at that time I thought, no, I'm too overwhelmed. I'm not ready. So I did delay it 6 months, but it was just bubbling in the back of my mind. And just I was becoming more and more certain that I needed to make the change, and then just thought, yeah, it's time now. So yeah, I just needed to sit with it for a bit, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's I've come across people describing that as well, where and it kind of started to surprise me with Practice Accelerator, because I ran the first 3 sessions of Practice Accelerator without ever having a website for it.
Okay, wow.
And so I hadn't, I'd done it as a real kind of, with that mindset of a kind of minimum viable product. So what does this look like? How do we get this working before spending money on things like marketing and so on? And so, but I'd run the webinars, which I think had brought people in. And then obviously the people who were going through the program were talking about it with colleagues and so on.
Yeah.
And what surprised me was that even without a website, people were sending me messages, can I talk to you about the program and about my practice and so on. And they were saying, yeah, I mean, I've been watching this for a couple of years now and thinking it might be something to do. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. So it's just interesting, the power of networks and word of mouth, and also the amount of time it takes for people, just like you said, to sit with something and sit with those ideas and percolate and just kind of feel or lean into those internal shifts that seem to happen.
Because I knew it was going to be a big deal when I did it. I knew that I wouldn't be able to just, because even psychologically, I wouldn't be able to just carry on, with the same old stuff, because once you know these things, you can't undo it. And, I knew I would want to, so I knew it was going to change things. But interestingly, I watched a little tiny bit of one of your webinars, but I hadn't really been following it on social media. I didn't watch any the whole way through. It really was just seeing Becky's journey that, I thought, yeah, that is now where I am and need that support. And she obviously just spoke so highly of your wisdom in so many areas. I thought, yep, that's totally what I need.
Well, yeah, I must take Becky out for a coffee. So, are we allowed in coffee shops at the moment? Maybe I should do it sooner rather than later. Okay, so tell me about, or just describe now where you're at, because obviously you've got Pocket Family Psychologist, which is the new brand.
Yeah. And
you had some side projects bubbling as well. So tell me a little bit about Pocket Family Psychologist, what that's all about, and then about some of your side projects.
Okay.
I'm thinking about things like writing stories for children and things like that.
Okay. So actually, I think the pandemic was helpful for me in that we've been talking about how I could make my next steps. And then when the pandemic happened, A, I had a bit more time in my hands, and B, I just was at a point where I really wanted to write something. And so someone in the group said, oh, just put up one landing page and then you can start to write from that. And so I went with the minimal viable product, which is always a bit of a struggle for me, but yeah, and then it just took off. So I developed the idea of Pocket Family Psychologist, which wasn't hugely different from my original brand, except it was less formal. It wasn't going to involve court work. It wasn't going to involve that very official kind of work. It was much more relaxed, more fun, more playful, more light touch. And so yeah, enough of a difference, and so some of the branding stayed similar, but other bits shifted, and I did go with just a very basic thing to begin with, and just bit by bit now I'm layering that up. But so yeah, it's now a service that will offer consultations to families or individuals, but kind of one-off or a series of one-offs, and online training, and then just free resources and stories and blogs and thoughts about family work and trauma, and all of the work that we do. So partly it was a bit of an indulgent space for me just to write and start to think, and then the other bit was about, oh, hold on, it's a daughter now, another form of an animal coming home. Guys, can you keep it down? Okay.
I love this.
Anyway, yeah. So we haven't. I mean, the online consultations have started to kind of be sold now, if you like. The online program's not yet, but it is in development and will be ready by September.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, because I remember us having early discussions about online programs and online training, and how could you kind of leverage technology to kind of connect with people and do that. And then, as you said, pandemic special happens, and and all of a sudden, like, it's perfectly aligned with where things need to go, because whether or not people are returning to face-to-face work or not, there's always this risk that, there could be a local lockdown, or there could be someone who comes into the therapy room who ends up through contact tracing, with you being told to self-isolate again. It just increases the uncertainty of that face-to-face work. So being able to do that online stuff is kind of really a route to the future in terms of sustainability and creating value in psychology practices.
And I think I think you were really, the whole program was very important in how I adapted to the crisis, because very quickly you came out with something to say, there's always opportunities and challenges, and we need to think about this, and some of the story brand stuff and some of the stuff that you put out, and it just instantly made me think, okay, this doesn't there are very helpful ways to respond to this and to think into it and to adapt, rather than just kind of, obviously I was in shock like the rest of the nation, but to mobilize and find a way forward, I think was really helpful.
And all of us were, I guess, obviously we've got the group which has the alumni in there as well, and so I think what I could see and what other people could see was that, all of us were able to kind of, because we had that big meeting, didn't we, where we all got together and said, well, how can we deal with this? And, the 7 kind of step program almost came out of that, out of our kind of joint webinar. And actually there's so much resource and capability within the group. It meant that perhaps we had somewhere to go and we could all carry on supporting one another. So what do you love most about your practice now? And I know everybody says, well, I'm still on this journey, it's never kind of fixed, but what do you love most about it now?
I find it's innovative. I think, I had to really look at my values. Yeah, innovation and creativity, I would say. They were the two, and freedom, I think. They are my kind of, I've recently realised, are my primary values. Along with helping other people and care, but they are the things that matter most personally for me, they were the things that my other practice were not really, they were doing a bit towards, but not enough, and that's what I needed more of. And so I just loved the freedom to be a lot more creative and do things differently and break some rules, and that just felt really, really good. And I'm very proud of the freshness and the of the new offerings.
Yeah, well, I'm reflecting on it now, but it's true that your brand offi, like the way that you are showing up on social media, and the, you know, and the interviews and the IGTV that you do, and the videos that you've put up and everything, it is a really fresh, crisp brand. And I think you've got some untapped kind of perhaps previously untapped kind of strengths and capabilities in that area, because it just seems to have kind of popped out in such a beautiful, it's like a bud and a flower that just popped out. Oh dear. Yeah, so it is interesting how when you kind of free up a bit of space to allow that creativity to come through, actually what blossoms quite quickly. Because now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see that as being a big struggle area for you. How did that come about? What was the journey there?
It was just permission. It was just because, well, the court work is such a, you know, very serious, you know, line of work. My initial website, my initial branding was still really lovely, and I'm still really proud of that. And it was still modern colors and everything, but it had to have a much more sedate, serious tone to it. That was very appropriate for that work. But there was something about shedding that and being able to just be more playful, which the therapy work and the consultations and the training we do is all very playful, which court work can't be playful. There's nothing playful about court work. I think that was the really liberating thing. Just I could let go of that and really, you know, I always knew I liked colors and creativity and, you know, breaking rules, but being able to do it in my work was just, yeah, really freeing.
Fantastic. Okay, so next question is, what have you learned about yourself in that journey?
What have I learned? I have, so personally, well, one of the things is that I had more in me. So sort of, but the year before I was feeling pretty burnt out and starting to dream of retirement. I still am, of course, dreaming of retirement in Greece, but you know, I was really starting to, I felt like I'd lost a lot of my ambition. I thought, you know, I looked at people that worked extra hours and thought, no, I don't want to do that. And but this has lit another fire, and I'm suddenly thinking about things a lot and jotting little ideas down and wanting to sit up an extra hour and do this, and, you know, and it feels like fun. And it's just really nice to discover that I've got another chapter and some more energy and more, you know, so that is great. I think I discovered how scared I was, and some of my beliefs around money and the importance of money and security. I had to challenge those, and still I'm challenging those. That, yeah, I think that's been a struggle, because this new part of the business isn't really making money just yet, and I have to just have trust that it will, and that, you know, I need to kind of sit with that. So that's been hard. And what else? I mean, it's not new, but I have loved the support. I, for quite a while, although I had people with me, we were kind of ships in the night. We didn't really catch up, and it has just been. I was a bit nervous about the group and how that was going to go for me, because I haven't done a lot of group stuff of late. And I've absolutely loved it. I've loved being part of a group. I took so much from those sessions. And now in Pocket Family Psychologist, I'm getting my team together, and we've had a couple of sessions, and so the need to collaborate and really to be with people, I'm really enjoying that again.
Yeah, and there is something special about creating things together as well. That co-creativity that is just really kind of nourishing somehow. you'll know all about that, with understanding about, you know, people in relationship and what that brings to us. I think it does harness some of those really kind of human processes, though, when we come into a psychologically safe space,
Yeah.
where we can be a bit vulnerable, we can have things that don't quite work out, we can share our insecurities and know that we've all kind of been through that. And I've certainly experienced in my psychology career, and I think out there in the world, there can also be other examples where it doesn't always feel like that, even though we're psychologists.
Exactly. Yeah.
Always like that out there.
Yeah.
So it is nice to kind of, and you know, I benefit from that as well. I just created the program so I could have people around me.
Well, it's very effective.
I was just lonely and you need to get some people in a program. Oh, okay, so on that note, what would you say have been your highlights and your lowlights?
Okay, now I made a note on this, so let me just have
well done.
I'd say my highlights are definitely the energy I got from those sessions and from the retreat. You know, I never dreaded any of those sessions coming up, even though they were quite a time commitment. But I would come away buzzing, full of ideas, and just full of so much energy and hope. And I just absolutely loved that. And I loved it when big ideas kind of landed and took shape, both for myself and for others in the group. You know, when you just get a realization, or you see someone run with something, or, you know, something landed for myself. And yeah, it's just really exciting, I suppose. So yeah, they were probably my highlights. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And how about the lowlights, the challenges and the struggles?
Time, well, not so much. More overwhelmed at times with the extent of what you opened up, you know. So I'd never heard of a lead magnet, you know, story brand, you know, marketing, social media. I didn't put myself out in social media. There was so much for me to get my head around, and it was just mind-blowing. There's so much language, so many concepts. I'm still having to work very hard on the shift between talking, you know, to and as a psychologist all the time, rather than really just sort of talking for, or sort of reflecting, or, you know, more the client group I'm working with. That's very hard to do. So there's so much to get my head around and to keep working on those things. But and the number of, you need a little bit of a budget, don't you, for the number of apps and the websites and, you know, all of that you just like, oh, I want that.
We do have a bit of an in-joke about the purchasing of AppSumo pieces of software, the purchasing of URLs. Has your URL addiction started yet?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, so we've got that in the that's to come, right? When you suddenly realise you've bought 10 URLs for new website ideas and product ideas that you've got. I think Becky's well established in her addiction now with that. And we were joking with Michaela about it the other day, and she was like, "What? I've not got this yet." We were like, "How have you managed to avoid the URL addiction, Michaela?" So yeah, that's all to come. Yes. Okay. So last thing would be, because we talked about what have you learned about yourself. Okay. So what would be kind of your word of advice to fellow psychologists? What kind of learning would you like to impart to them about being in private practice?
Well, I would first of all say it's totally worth it. Well, if you are feeling restrained and constrained by systems, and you know, you're not getting to do the work you really want to do, and which I know a lot of clinical psychologists certainly feel, I would say absolutely getting out there and getting to do what really matters to you and doing it well is so worth everything. So it's definitely worth it. It is scary, so it does require quite a lot of courage and trust in yourself, but and trust in the support. I mean, that's one of the good things about this program, is that there is now always this network. So no matter what question you've got, what new term you're trying to get your head around, there will always be that support and that safety net, and that feels really, really important, because it is just such a big there's so much to understand. But yeah, so I would just say be brave, but it's much better to have something behind you, have some people that are on the same journey, and not I think in the normal private practice world there's a lot of caution, and it's a very quite understandably and rightly very cautious world. But I think this setting is a bit more space to be brave and to think, just to not to be so, I can't think of the word, but yeah, just to kind of go outside the box a bit more.
Kind of hemmed in otherwise.
Yes.
By some of those concerns, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be brave. I mean, time was an issue, and I still kind of feel like, oh, I would love to do it again, but have a whole day a week that I can look at all the resources you've provided. I mean, you put up videos, and I write it on my little list to watch. I still haven't watched them, and I get a bit annoyed with myself for that. But they're always there, and I know I can go back to them when I get a moment. And but yeah, if you can create a bit of extra time to really indulge yourself in it, that's great. But it's not essential.
It's true.
You get by without it.
What I'm learning more and more is, on the one hand, it is an accelerator in that it helps people make that shift from, as you said, a little bit perhaps that hemmed in space to that much more open space. That doesn't necessarily mean that the only way to be successful is to now start working 20 hours a day. And to only be focused on, I've got to make it to the end of this 6 months. As you said, the materials are there, the group's there and everything. And what seems to work, and of course we're all trying to balance so many things, and we're running a practice anyway. But what works is, taking it step by step. I've probably told you this story before, but my old running coach, the first time I ran a 33k run in the Alps, and it was going to be tough. We knew this. And he said to me, no matter how slow you go, don't stop. Because as long as you don't stop, you'll always get there. You'll get to the end. And I reminded myself of that so many times on that run. And there were qualifying time gates. You had to get to a certain point at a certain time. But just by keep going, I got to all the time gates, and I got to the end of the finish line, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a great metaphor for life, because actually, no matter how slow you're going, as long as you do keep going, you will get where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Can't help but.
Yes, but I totally agree. And but what I have also valued is the support for courage. So because the fear has come over me at times, where I'm especially, just sort of we're getting ready to go to bed, and I just think, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Really, do you need to do this? Could you not have just carried on? You were doing pretty well. So the courage to deal with that. And then also, though, the space to think, are these the right steps? I'm not taking steps in the wrong direction, am I? Am I making more work for myself? Am I taking a longer route here, And the group was really supportive space to be able to think that through. So you're not just carrying on blindly, it's you're supposed to reflect.
Yeah, perfect. Lovely. Well, thanks very much. Where do we find you? Tell us all about your website addresses and your social media addresses.
All right. Yep. So on Instagram, as Pocket Family Psychologist, on Facebook as Pocket Family Psychologist, and website is, and we blog kind of at least once a week on pocketfamilypsychologist.com.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and see you in the group.
See you Friday. Yes, lovely. Thank you, Wendy. See you then. Bye.